So for the audience, if you want to know what the argument is, now it's interesting. He's using it. If Peter is meaning if the Pope is the head and he's the one who can decide matters infallibly, and that papacy is now representing Peter because Peter is the first Pope, according to Catholic belief, then why didn't Peter settle it and end it? Why then did James have to come up and then add his 2 cents worth if the papacy is true? So this is his understanding of the papacy. That if papacy was true, once Peter spoke, that's it. And, he's spoken. There's nothing further to elaborate. But now you're going to show, obviously, that's not the understanding of the Catholic Church concerning the papacy. Now, before you do dismount that, as a Catholic, would he have not known this is not the Catholic understanding of papal authority?
Well, sadly, most Catholics don't know. That's why I do what I do.
No, you're talking about the average lay Catholic. We understand, but this guy
should know. He should know. This guy should know.
This guy in that level because he's claiming to be a philosopher and a scholar, and he even made a philosophical argument for the papacy on this same channel, which now he retracts. Yes. So this guy who's out there now talking and influencing people, and their blood will be on his hands. Shouldn't he have not known before he ran his mouth?
Absolutely, this guy should know for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Okay, so now. Now you set that up beautifully. So let's break it down. Number one, let's ask some questions. First of all, about Acts 15, about the apostles in general. Do we all believe, Protestants, Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, that the apostles were inspired by God? What is James White's favorite word?
Theopneustos, man.
Theopneustos. Okay, that's okay. So all the apostles were God breathed. Not only in what they wrote, but in their whole ministry when they spoke on faith or morals. When they preached the gospel, they were theopneustos. They were God-breathed, right? And St. Paul talks about this. What is it? Is it 2 Thessalonians 2:15?
Yeah. Brother, before you go on, let me just clarify what the Protestant or James White's position is.
Sure.
They were not God-breathed. The scripture is God-breathed. So I want you to be careful. James White does not say the apostles somehow were that God breathed on them. He says scripture is God breathed.
Yeah.
Well, God actually did breathe on them.
Because he wouldn't say that.
Yeah, true.
What did you say? What did you say?
I said God actually did breathe on them, but okay.
Yeah, it's just John 20:22. But he'll say, well, it doesn't use. He'll get technical. It doesn't use that
word. It doesn't use that word. Yeah.
That's fine. Well, what is? I mean, St. Paul says 2 Thessalonians 2:15 that either by word or by letter is the written word of God or the oral word of God. So who cares what James White says? Okay, we'll stick to orthodoxy. Orthodox and Catholics, we agree that the apostles, when they preach the gospel, because you can't have the apostles preaching anything that's erroneous. Right. You just can't. That means you may have errors in revelation. Public revelation could have errors that would extend out to us today. So that can't happen. So logically, you can't have that. Okay, so if Peter is infallible in all things he preaches, if the apostle James, James is infallible, or if the of Luke is, or Paul, if they're all infallible because they are in the era of public revelation and they can't err, if they can err, then what are we doing here, right? We should all just go home. So some of us are home, but if that's the case, then think about Acts 15 for just 1 minute. If people can just wrap their minds around this, Peter could have answered the question by himself. Paul could have answered the question by himself. All the apostles could have answered the question by themselves because they, as St. Paul says, were preaching the word, whether by letter or by word of mouth. They can't fall into error. They could be hypocrites, as Peter was, but they can't teach error. He's a hypocrite on what he taught. So he taught the right thing, but he didn't do the right thing. Okay. So that's number one. So Peter could have done that if he wanted to, and all the apostles could have done that. Number two, when you get to the ecumenical councils that we hold to, both East and West, Catholics and Orthodox, who is the first to speak at an ecumenical council? It's the one who is the head of the council. That is who is first to speak. So folks who say James was the last to speak, therefore he was the head. Well, what do you do with the ecumenical councils? When you have councils, the first that has primacy, you can call it primacy of honor. I don't care what you call it, but the one who has primacy is the first one who speaks. And that to me was Peter. He spoke first because he had the primacy. Okay. That's point number two. Point number three, even if I were to grant you all this consensus ecclesiology, Again, this is according to Lumen Gentium, how we, generally speaking in the Catholic Church, come to an infallible declaration. Consensus based ecclesiology. That's how we do. Even if the Pope can declare it, right? He's not going to. That's not what he does. That's not his job, is to sit there and be an infallible machine or just declaring things left and right, like just out of his mouth, right? When there are things that need to be answered, he goes to the church and he seeks the answer, and then he declares it together with the church, even though it's his authority alone that's declaring it, and it's under his authority of the Roman bishop. As a Roman bishop, it is speaking the mind of the church. Okay. Yep. So there's no issue with Acts 15 if you understand the papacy in a collegial manner, right? Now, of course, like I said, there are examples to where you can't have collegiality and consensus. You just can't. That's just history tells us you can't. There's nothing you can do to manipulate history. I'm sorry. As much as you want to, you can't do that. So what happens in those cases? The Pope has to be the last word on that, and he decides with side A or side B, and that's where the consensus becomes, where he decides with. Okay. But generally speaking, the church would agree with itself. Like all the bishops would agree, generally speaking, for the most part. That's how things work, maybe like 95% of the time. But there are instances where it doesn't work that way. So nothing wrong with Acts 15. It's his misunderstanding what he's thinking, and he's expecting the papacy in Acts 15 to be the Pope. Peter stands up, declares something, and everyone just bows down and says, amen, because Peter spoke. This is the way it goes. Okay, well, again, all the apostles were inspired, so that could have happened with any of them, right? Not just Peter. At that, so Peter's ministry is different than the Bishop of Rome's ministry today. The Pope is not inspired. He can't do what Peter did, right? So, does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, completely.
Okay, so now, and then there's another part where he talks about monoepiscopacy. And we can get into that in part 2, but I'd like to get into some of the fathers before we run out of time, so that we have some good content here. So now the fathers are going to refute everything he's built, all the foundation he's built. They are going to break it down geniusly, masterfully. Okay, so I'm going to bring up. Let me see. How do I get rid of this?
By the way, one thing I do want to confirm, I want to piggyback off of everything you pointed out there, Elijah, that rather than Acts 15 refuting the Catholic position, it confirms everything that we believe, because nobody believes that Peter is a dictator. Nobody believes that he is a kind of tyrannical figure. Rather, the fact that you do have Peter as the one that does stand up, make the declaration, and then James confirms that Simeon has declared, that right there is the papacy in action. Nobody believes Peter is a tyrannical figure. Nobody believes he is this, this dastardly figure that is going to stand up, and it is only his word and his word that matters. No, notice how multiple people debate there at the gathering in Acts 15, and I think all of those issues are missed by Sijuati. But I got to tell you, he should know better. If he developed a whole argument that I imagine, if everything is always on his academia, I imagine that when he was Catholic, that argument for the papacy was on his academia too. Well, then how valuable was that then? How much did he even know about Catholic teaching if as an Orthodox he doesn't understand it? Well, then as a Catholic, he didn't understand it either. That's very problematic. Very problematic.
Yep, absolutely. I think his error on monoepiscopacy is in the 55-minute mark, but we'll just summarize it. Or I don't know if you can pull it up, but
okay.
Parliament that sort of subordinate to the monarchy, but the limitation that's taking place because of various means has been incremental changes such that the monarch isn't going to exercise the power that he actually has, but he just wouldn't do it because of the problems that it would cause. So I would say that we still have that continuity of organization. But again, what this allows for is for change over time, but not drastic change, that we get rid of the monarchy. That would be then a New England. A New England has been developed. Now there is no monarchy at all. And that's how things have been around the world. New republics and things like that have started off, and it's no longer the same as what we had in the past. And so I would just say, and again, I'm not a political scientist. I'm not someone who works on sort of constitutional matters. So I might be wrong in which the sort of monarchy operates, but from my own very limited understanding, I would say that it still allows this criteria to work because of the incremental changes are ones in which it hasn't changed the full identity of the organizational structure by cutting off the head completely. as such, which is the monarchy.
Yeah, that's helpful, and I'm not a political theorist either, so that's a good enough kind of thumbnail sketch for me.
Yes.
I want to apply this back to the church in that it seemed like one of your arguments against Roman Catholicism was the Monoepiscopacy in Rome. Do I take that to be correct?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So now your continuity kind of principles here, the aims, you have the doctrine of God and the consensus-based ecclesiology. Within that, it seems that you're allowing for a development from kind of a system where you don't have the monoepiscopacy, where you have multiple bishops, to a system where you have the a single bishop. But it is the principle that it has to remain kind of like you had to have the king, even though his role changed. You have to have the bishop, even though the function of how many bishops you have in a given city can change. Is that fair? Am I tracking kind of the necessary requirements?
Yeah, this is very good because it gives me an opportunity to clarify something. So, because I think some people who've read it have misunderstood what I'm arguing for with this section with Roman Catholicism. What I'm saying is that Rome didn't have a monoepiscopacy, and that was something which developed over quite a long period of time, at least a century or so after the death of Peter, that we really can have a claim to there being a monarchical episcopacy. But I'm open to there being monoepiscopacies very early on in other regions, and that's all that's needed for orthodoxy as such to operate. Orthodoxy doesn't have to say that there's a monoepiscopacy everywhere. Maybe that might not have been the case, but so long as there is a monoepiscopacy in some area that allows the presiding over the Eucharist, then that can be the case. And I think we have evidence of this sort of through the very early writings of Ignatius, where he is, outside of Antioch, but also in other regions, he's sort of greeting the bishops, and we assume then that he's greeting the one bishop that's presiding as a ruling authority over those regions.
Pause it for a second, brother.
So, and we see.
Oh, my goodness.
Pause it.
So I just want to break down his argument. So for folks who don't understand what he's saying, monoepiscopacy, maybe a lot of people don't know what that means. Monoepiscopacy is where you have a single bishop governing a certain diocese. So let's say in Rome, we believe that there was a single bishop governing Rome, like the head bishop, right? And that's the bishop of Rome, was the Pope. In Antioch, there was a bishop. In wherever, Samaria, Ephesus, right? Constantinople. Eventually, there's a single bishop that governs that area. That doesn't mean that's their only thing they govern. Like for the Bishop of Rome, we believe he governs that, and he governs the whole church. He's the head of the church, right? So he's saying, Dr. Sejwadi is saying that in Rome, there was no monoepiscopacy. It was a government of bishops that were governing the city of Rome or the Church of Rome, and therefore you don't have a papacy that's divinely instituted by Christ, because if it early on it was multiple bishops governing the Church of Rome, then you don't have a divine institution of the papacy. You only have the divine institution of the papacy if you have a single bishop that is the head of that local church in Rome. So that's what he's claiming. But now he's saying that in other regions there were monoepiscopacy, and that's how you know that it's apostolic. It's only in Rome that it was not a monoepiscopacy. Maybe in other areas it wasn't, but we know there are some areas that it was, some areas that it wasn't, according to him. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Now, the problem with that, and there's a huge problem, is now we're going to get into the fathers. And he's saying that Rome did not have a monoepiscopacy. He is throwing all the church fathers in the trash. If that's the case, then the church fathers are no longer reliable in anything, because if they get this wrong, then what can we count on them on? Okay, so here's St. Irenaeus writing in 180 AD, and he says, since, however, it would be very tedious in such a volume as this to reckon up the successions of all the churches, we do put to confusion all those who, in whatever manner, whether by an evil self-pleasing, by vainglory, or by blindness and perverse opinion, assemble in unauthorized meetings. Now, before I continue with this quote, I just want to, we didn't get to the part where he says that he doesn't believe that Rome was a church that was started by Peter. He thinks that it was a church that was kind of organically started by like groups of people that just started appearing, and slowly it became like this grandeur church. And the reason why it's a special church is because Peter and Paul died there, and so their relics were there. And another reason why it's a special church is because the Roman Empire was there. That's why he thinks that Rome is headship, has primacy of honor. That's first. Okay. He doesn't think that Peter and Paul started the church. He doesn't think that Peter started the church. Okay. This is St. Irenaeus. Continuing on. We do this, I say, by indicating that tradition derived from the apostles. So he's saying Irenaeus is wrong. Of the very great, the very ancient, and universally known church, founded and organized at Rome by the two most glorious apostles, Peter and Paul. Can't be any more clear than that.
That's a money one. That's a money quote.
He says that they weren't. St. Irenaeus says that they were. So we have a Catholic, a former Catholic, who put on his Protestant hat and became Eastern Orthodox.
Can I ask you a question, Elijah?
Sure.
No Eastern Orthodox rejects St. Irenaeus, right?
Correct. Absolutely
So
not.
for them, St. Irenaeus, is he one of their saints?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
So my question is, does he not know that St. Irenaeus is a saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church? And does he not know that St. Irenaeus says that the Bishop of Rome was appointed by Peter and Paul, which means the Bishop of Rome had to have been already presiding over Rome in the 60s because Peter and Paul were martyred in the 60s?
Yep.
Absolutely. That's the logic.
He should know better. He really, honestly, I'm not joking around, guys. He should know better. These are elementary blunders. They're really bad.
Yeah.
I want the people to understand. Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, the Catholic Church, Syrian Church, all recognize St. Irenaeus as a saint.
Yes.
Yep.
He's saying Peter and Paul went to Rome, appointed the Bishop of Rome. They were martyred in the 60s. There must have been a Bishop of Rome in the 60s, or Irenaeus is mistaken, and therefore you now destroy the very foundation of our faith, because Irenaeus is the oldest extant writing we have on who wrote the Gospels.
That's
Matthew,
correct.
Mark, Luke, and John. Do you guys know that?
Yep.
And if Irenaeus is a disciple of Polycarp, a bishop of the Bishop of Smyrna, who's an eyewitness disciple of the apostles taught by John, and even Irenaeus admits this, who was martyred, then Irenaeus either did not hear Polycarp correctly, or Polycarp passed this tradition to him, which means either Polycarp did not hear John correctly, or Polycarp lied, or John misinformed him. This guy's a heretic. I don't know if you see that. The guy's Sijuati is not simply destroying the Catholic Church, which he can't. He's destroying the Eastern Orthodox Church. He's weaponizing James White and liberals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's begun weaponizing them already, because if you guys haven't noticed, there are people that are utilizing these arguments that are Muslim. Now, I know I'm talking about the Trinity and Christ, but they're picking up his arguments and they are using them in debate. They love him. They love Sijuat Arius. There you go.
He's the new poster boy for them. Now, here's the thing. St. Irenaeus, I mean, we can read the full quote and finish the quote, but what he does is he goes through a succession of bishops that go back to the Peter, right? So in Rome,
I have him in my article.
There you go. So if you want to, bring that up. That's
up to you, because I have the.
Yeah, brother, you got that definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my blog. Let me get it for you because I have it. Because
what
I've been doing is, whenever I hear you guys mention the fathers, I try to find the quotes and make it a blog to make it available for these guys because you have it on slides. What I want to do is make it available on the blog so the Christians are listening can go and easily find it and use it. So the Council of Ephesus, I whenever I hear you guys, because you guys think I don't listen to you, I go find them and I make blog posts. So here it is. Why? For the benefit of the brothers and sisters who are listening. So they can just go to my blog, Google, oh, here you go. Here you go. Oh, look. I just got to know how to spell Irenaeus. His name is very difficult to spell. Here you go. Here, let me screen share right here, and I'll give it to you guys. So, guys, the blog, a bulk of my articles are all church fathers. Because why? I'm trying to learn the church fathers.
Yep.
On Answering Islam, I was a Protestant, so I didn't really care much for the fathers. Now, however, because I'm the most handsome Buddhist for the papacy.
Yep.
Now, I love the fathers, and I'm trying to see their theology. So here he gives you the list of bishops. Right here, let's go here. List of bishops
that go back to the Bishop of Rome, who's Peter.
There you go. Paragraph.
So he's listing the Monoepiscopacy of Rome. Going back to Peter.
Yep.
Here, let me read who it is. It goes, the blessed apostles then, having found and built up the church, committed into the hands of Linus the office of the episcopate. Now, guys, understand that means Linus was the bishop in the 60s, unless he believes that Paul and Peter lived unto the 2nd century in the 100s, so they would have been over 100 years old. Is that what he believes? They were martyred in the 60s. Of this Linus, Paul makes mention in the epistles to Timothy. To him succeeded Anacletus. So here's Peter we consider him first pope, but let's just go in the order of bishops, not apostles. First, second, Anacletus. Yep. After him, in the 3rd place from the apostles, Clement of Rome was allotted the bishopric. That's 3. This man, as he had seen the blessed apostles and had been conversing with them, might be said to have the preaching of the apostles still echoing in his ears, and their tradition before his eyes. Nor was he alone in this, for there were many still remaining who had received instruction from the apostles. Now, who comes after Clement? In the time of this Clement, no small dissension having occurred among the brethren at Corinth, the church in Rome dispatched the most powerful letter to the Corinthians. Now, guys, Irenaeus says that letter to Corinthians was written by Clement.
Yep.
Clement wrote it. And when did he become bishop? He was the bishop of Rome. After who? Anacletus, after Linus. He was the 3rd bishop.
That's correct.
The church in Rome dispatched the most powerful letter to Corinthians, exhorting them to peace, renewing their faith, declaring the tradition which it had lately received from the apostles, proclaiming the one God. Now he's telling you what they proclaim. The Creator. Because remember, Irenaeus is refuting Gnostic heretics. Right? And from this document, whosoever chooses to do so may learn that he, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, was preached by the churches. Now, if you want to know what Irenaeus is doing, he's destroying the Gnostic heretics who said the God of the Old Testament is an evil God and different from the God revealed in Jesus. He goes, you're lying. All the churches started by the apostles and the bishops they appointed, their churches are with us and their successors are with us, and we have an unbroken chain. And they all say the apostles taught the God of the Old Testament is the same God revealed in Jesus, so you're lying.
Yep.
So he's appealing to apostolic succession to destroy Gnosticism. But to this Clement, there succeeded Evaristus. That's now the 4th bishop. Alexander followed Evaristus, right? So he is now the 5th bishop. 6 from the apostles, Sixtus.
Yep.
Now he's the 6th bishop. After him, bishop number 7, Telephorus, who was gloriously martyred. Then bishop number 8, Hyginus. And then bishop number 9, Pius. Then after him, Anicetus. Soter have succeeded Anicetus. Eulytrius does now. So he's saying, I'm now writing when Eulytrius is the bishop, and he's bishop number 12.
Yeah.
In this order, and by this succession, the ecclesiastical tradition from the apostles and the preaching of the truth have come down to us. So he's saying, you Gnostics, we have an unbroken chain. This bishop was appointed by that bishop, was appointed by that bishop, all the way to the apostles. We have an unbroken chain. Their churches are with us. Their writings preserve with us. You're liars. And then he mentions Polycarp. But anyway, it's all in that article. So now, again, so people understand why Sijuati is dangerous and he's a joke.
Very dangerous.
Sijuati is an Eastern Orthodox. He believes St. Irenaeus is a saint, and he must believe St. Irenaeus is writing the truth. How could he say there is no bishop in Rome when Irenaeus says that it was the apostles that appointed the 1st bishop of Rome in the 60s? Anyway, you guys got that. I sent it to you in private chat if you want to send it to your channels.
And I'm glad you are the one who read it, because I would never be able to pronounce any of those names besides Pius. Yeah. So, and I'm glad you did this, because now we have the proof is in the pudding. We have names that go back, single names, not like multiple names, saying here's who governed the church. Now, why is this important? To your point, St. Irenaeus is refuting the Gnostics, saying, look, I can trace back my bishopric, or I'm in communion with the Church of Rome that can trace back his bishopric back to the apostles.
Yep.
And he does that, right? It would refute his whole argument if he's not able to do that. And there's multiple bishops, right? And they can claim, oh, this bishop is ours, this bishop. No, there's one. Either you're with that bishop or not. The one that's sitting in the chair today. Now, here's what I think he would say to this argument. And then I'm going to refute that.
Stillman it. Yeah.
Yeah, Stillman it. So I think he would say that early 2nd century, you had a monoepiscopacy in Rome. Early 2nd century. He'll say, maybe like 130, 140 AD. That's when it started becoming more monoepiscopacy. Okay. So by the time St. Irenaeus is writing 180, in his time, there is definitely a monoepiscopacy in Rome. And he's just writing in his time that Rome is monoepiscopacy because that's just what it is at his time. Okay. Now, number one, that's hogwash, because you can't have somebody who's living in 180 AD, 50 years removed. And this is a point that, what's his name? Joe Heschmeyer just made against Gavin Ortland. He just made a really, really great video on this topic. I don't have time to go all over. Like I can't go about this topic, like, because I have so many other things, so I can't get into it so much. But he gets into it against Gavin Ortland. I think he did the video like a day or two ago. Folks can go watch it. But in 180 AD, if the monoepiscopacy happened 50 years before that, you would have people at his time saying, what are you talking about? What list? Like, what this list is not going to work, because we know that there was no monoepiscopacy going back to the list that you're given, right? So I think that's a very powerful point to say that monoepiscopacy existed from the time of Irenaeus and all the way back to the time of apostles. If it didn't, he couldn't write this succession. He couldn't have said that. That wouldn't have worked. Somebody would have stood up and said, no, you're wrong. We know that that didn't exist in Rome. Okay, and this whole thing about Rome not being a monoepiscopacy from the beginning is a liberal scholarship idea. It's not something that anyone believed. Now, it's not just St. Irenaeus who gives a list. There's other fathers that give a list of succession. St. Augustine, St. Jerome, and other fathers that gave a list of Rome from their time all the way back to Peter. And they all see it as a monoepiscopacy. So how does that work where you have a liberal scholar or liberal scholars plus Sijuwadi versus the early church fathers? And if the scholars are right on this, then we should all just become Protestants, because the fathers are no longer reliable. They're all wrong. Peter did not start the church at Rome. He didn't. Paul didn't. It was started organically, or whatever he was saying, with a bunch of bishops together. If that's the case, the fathers are wrong in so many things, and that's what I have prepared here. That's just one of them. So if we can go back to St. Irenaeus, let me see if I can share that again, because I would like to read the whole.
Bring it up again.
Yeah, I'm gonna. It's no, not that one, but on my slide.
Okay, we'll
Yeah,
bring up the slide. So you don't want the Irenaeus one, just want your slide.
Yeah, because I'm gonna finish reading this one. I know you probably have it in yours.
It's mine. Mine's is better looking than yours, and it's bigger. Shoot.
I agree with that. I'm really bad at this stuff. I put these together as quickly as I can. Okay, so
Divine Mercy is probably one of the best with the slides, man. That guy's
he is really good. He is.
Really
He's done some of my stuff. So let's go back to reading this and finish it. So we do this, I say, by indicating that tradition derived from the apostles of the very great, the very ancient, and universally known church founded and organized at Rome by the two most glorious apostles, Peter and Paul, as also by pointing out the faith preached to men, which comes down to our time by means of the successions of the bishops. For it is a matter of necessity that every church should agree with this church on account of its preeminent authority, that is the faithful everywhere, and as much as the apostolic tradition has been preserved continuously by those faithful men who exist everywhere. So you have this St. Irenaeus saying that everyone should agree with Rome. And I know that there's different interpretations of that from Eastern Orthodoxy and non-Catholics that say, oh, well, he's only saying that because, Rome is so glorious and it has the truth. It's just one of the churches that has the truth, not the only one that has the truth. Okay, well, he doesn't say that. He just says what he says and he leaves it there. So next slide is, now we have St. Optatus. He talks about this idea of the headship being in a local diocese, not a universal headship, right? Yeah. Let's talk about this. You cannot then deny that you do know that upon Peter, first in the city of Rome, was bestowed the episcopal cathedra, chair on which sat Peter, the head of all the apostles. That defeats the whole episcopacy, monoepiscopacy, just that line alone. For which reason he was called Cephas, that in this one cathedra, not multiple, not two, not three, not a multiple episcopacy, a mono, one. Unity should be preserved by all, lest the other apostles might claim each for himself separate cathedrals, so that he who should set up a second cathedra against the unique cathedra would already be a schismatic and a sinner. Well, then on the one cathedra, which is the first of the endowments, Peter was the first to sit. So in other words, now he's saying here that there should be only one chair, one cathedra, so that divisions may not arise. If you have two, then you have divisions, then you don't know which one's the head, who has a final say. So if you have Peter who sits in the chair and he has a final say, then that passes on to the successor of Peter. And this is why he says to the city of Rome. He's not just talking about Peter, he's talking about the bishop of Rome at his time. So the bishop of Rome sits on that cathedra as the universal head of the church, right? So that if you're in communion with him, you are in the church. If you're not in communion with him, you're no longer part of the church. And this is explicit from the fathers. And this breaks down a lot of the things that he says in the video, just this alone, because he talks about a Eucharistic headship of each bishop in the local diocese, which Catholics believe. We believe that, right? We believe in the communion of bishops in each diocese, and they're all in communion with each other. And what draws them together in the center is the Pope, center of unity. So it's a circle, and the Pope is in the middle, and he draws them all into that one cathedra, so that they're all together.
Okay, hold on 1 second, brother, before you move on to your next slide.
Go ahead, brother.
Watch it, guys. Okay. I have it right there.
You do?
This is Saint Optatus. Here it is. I told you guys, it's right here. It's very long. So I just sent the link to you in private chat, and I sent it out to you. Here you go. The succession of bishops of Rome. You cannot then deny that you do know that upon Peter first in the city of Rome was bestowed the episcopal cathedra, what he just said. and he's the head. Peter was the first to sit, and then
I
here
didn't know you
is
had that one. Wow.
brother. I told you, man. Even though you think I don't listen, when I'm walking
Oh,
or
no,
in
I
my
know you do.
when I'm walking, because when you put me to sleep, it makes me then push myself to stay awake, so that burns more calories. Or when I'm in the buffet, I'll listen to you so I can get, go to sleep so I don't eat as much. So I listen. So guys, here it is, free of charge, because he's got it on slides. I want you to have it so you can then use it like they're using it, because Elijah wants you just to go to him and let him do it, But I'm a very humble Chaldean. Okay, but anyway. So here you go is the list. To Peter succeeded Linus. To Linus succeeded Clement. Clement Anacletus, so on and so forth. There you go. So right there. So there's that other article. Now we're going to go to your next slide. Okay, Mr. Aino, because you are. You just like you're such a mean guy, Sam. So Jawadi's right about you. David was right.
Beautiful slide. Beautiful slide. Okay. St. Jerome says, but you say the church was founded upon Peter, although elsewhere the same is attributed to all the apostles. And they all received the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and the strength of the church depends upon them all alike. Yet one among the 12 is chosen, so that when a head has been appointed, there may be no occasion for schism. So again, there has to be a head that sits on a chair that's a universal head, not just a head in a local diocese. Because if he's saying this in a local diocese only, it wouldn't make sense, right? Number two, he actually wrote a letter to Pope Damasus, and I don't know if you have that letter, to Pope, because that's a very powerful letter that I wish I prepared for today. But if you don't have it, we can do that in part 2. But there was a schism at the time.
Yeah, I'm looking for my post on Jerome. So go ahead. I'll see if I find. I'll bring it up.
Sure. So there was a schism at the time in his time, Saint Jerome, about it was semi-Arianism, and orthodoxy of what's the right understanding of Christ. And he writes to Pope Damasus in 381, and he says, basically we're all confused as to where the truth is. Mm-hmm. You tell me where the truth is, because whoever communes with you is communing with the actual Church of God, and whoever is not communing with you, talking to the Pope, is no longer part of the church. So it's necessary to be in communion with Rome, is what St. Jerome is saying. And he says, if you have to write a new creed, do that and tell me what I should believe. That's what St. Jerome is saying to the Pope. So for those who say, oh, you can't change the creed, St. Jerome disagrees with that and says that you can, since he's saying, you tell me what I should believe, and I'll believe it. So if you have it.
You do have it. You do.
Yeah, I do have it.
Wow.
Hold on.
Okay.
Because I found it.
That is another money one.
I put it in a long post. So guys, here's another one. So this is the one you're talking about right here, where it's to Pope Damasus right here. Letter, it says 15, but 376, 377. This is the one, right? Jerome?
Yes.
There you go. That is the one. Yep.
All right. Let me send it to you in private chat again. This is a long one on what? Let me show you what it is. So for every one of you guys, this one post, like I said, I've been doing a lot on the fathers now because I want
the
father. It's Peter's primacy in the early church. Peter's primacy. So I go through a lot of sources. So let's go see Damasus right here. What did I do? Damasus. What happened here? I even quote Pope Damasus, but I want the one from Jerome. Here you go. Even Pope Damasus, I have it all here. So guys, save these links for the future sessions. So do you want me to read this for you?
Please, if you could.
All right. Yeah, just pray for my throat to be perfectly healthy so I can use my voice to scream at William. All right. Yet, though your greatness terrifies me, your kindness attracts me. From the priest, I demand the safekeeping of the victim. From the shepherd, the protection due to the sheep. From the priest, I demand the safekeeping of the victim. From the shepherd, the protection due to the sheep. So he's saying to the Pope that he's looking for him, the shepherd, to protect the sheep, right? That's how I'm understanding it, right? Yeah. Is that what he's saying? You guys are all silent. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I believe, no doubt.
Because he's talking to Pope Damasus, so he's telling this to the Pope Damasus, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because
he's looking for the shepherd to protect the sheep.
Right. That's Christ appointed this to Peter to do to my sheep.
So that means he's talking to the Pope.
Yep.
Away with all that is overweening. Let the state of Roman majesty withdraw. My words are spoken to the successor, so that's the Pope, of the fisherman. Wow, clear as day, guys. He's saying to the Pope, to the successor of the fisherman, to the disciple of the cross. As I follow no leader save Christ, so I communicate with none but your blessedness. That is with the chair of Peter. Guys, he just said the seat of Rome is a chair of Peter. For this I know is the rock on which the church is built. This is the house where alone the Paschal lamb can be rightly eaten. This is the ark of Noah, and he who is not found in it shall perish when the flood prevails. But since by reason of my sins I have betaken myself to direct this desert which lies between Syria and the uncivilized waste, I cannot, owing to the great distance between us, always ask of your sanctity the holy thing of the Lord. Consequently, I here follow the Egyptian confessors who share your faith and anchor my frail craft under the shadow of their great argosies. I know nothing of Vitalis. I reject Meletius. I have nothing to do with Paulinus. He that gathered not with you scatters.
Yeah. Wow.
Powerful, man.
That is a money one. Big time money one. Wow.
He said that about Pope Damasus.
Wow.
That your chair, what did he say about your chair? Look, that's where the church is built. That's the rock.
Yeah.
Where it's built. But guys, it doesn't get any clearer. Jerome believed.
Ark of Noah. Wow.
Yeah, he says it. But guys, I don't know. Now, just so I can know, I'm laughing, brother. I'm serious because I don't know. St. Jerome is accepted by, I know, Catholic Church, but Eastern Orthodox?
All Orthodox, Oriental and Eastern.
Wait, hold on. No, again, I'm saying this with all seriousness.
Yeah.
You're telling me they accept him as a saint. They read him saying this about the bishop, that his seat is the rock, because that's the chair of Peter, and they still don't believe in the papal primacy?
It's all flowery. They would say it's just flowery language.
It's flowery language, yeah.
Really?
Byzantine.
That's
I'm not even joking. That's
No, we're not
the
joking.
answer. That's the
We're not
answer.
joking.
Actually, I debated Father Sweden on this, and you know what he said when I read this to him? I'm not even kidding. You can go back and watch it, and some folks have seen it. They can confirm. He says, "Oh, that Saint Jerome, he was such a kid. He was just a jokester. He was just joking." That's what his answer was.
Wow. And so even Oriental Orthodox accept this him as a saint?
Yeah.
Man,
Is he a legitimate? Is he a legitimate priest now? I know he was a deacon. Is he a priest? Sweden?
Oh no, I mean, he's the whole the like schismatic version of Eastern Orthodoxy.
Right. Yeah. Pseudo.
But he is but he is a priest. I don't know if they have valid. I call him father out of respect. I don't know.
No doubt. Yeah. No, I get that totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
No,
just
you
wondering
want
if
to
he
know.
really is.
But
I was
so
only curious. Sweden is an idiot.
I'm not going to belabor the point. I just want to know again. I'm not going to belabor the point. So every apostolic church goes by accept St. Jerome as a saint, right?
Yeah.
So no one can say, no, that's not true. We don't accept him.
Correct.
They accept him. So, okay.
Delta.
Now,
Yep.
so St. Irenaeus, I don't know if they accept St. Optatus.
They do.
But,
They do.
okay.
They do.
And St. Jerome?
Yes.
And then you haven't even mentioned Ephesus, which I have.
Yeah.
And then Council of, and yet they still want to argue against a man. That's okay.
Yeah,
I really don't know, brother.
It's going to get worse. In part 2, it's going to get worse, brother.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Give me some. I'll give you let's go another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
You want to do some super chats, Elijah?
Well, let him do one quote, then we'll open. Unless you guys need to call it.
No. I'm good. I'm good. I want to make sure you're okay. And Elijah, you okay?
What this guy said.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. That's
Of course, Jonathan, brother. You know why? Because you're East Orthodox. You can't give up on your Orthodox. We understand.
There's
We
no
still love
way.
you. We understand because if you can show me the same language set of any other center, then we would say you may have a case. Now, it's easy, Jonathan, to prove this wrong. Show me where St. Jerome said this of any other bishop and any other see. Case closed.